Hello. Today we're going to be learning Likkutei Torah daf samach tes, and this is we're right in the middle of the mimer that was begun on daf samach zayin, which is mi mana afar Yaakov and Mesper Yisrael, and the mimer as a whole has been discussing the idea that a Jew has the ability to reach beyond the structure of creation, which the structure of creation is one of countability, and that Bilam compliments the Jewish people by saying Mimana Afar Yaakov, who can count the dust of Yaakov, meaning that Yaakov is beyond countability. The Yaakov is transcends the idea of being countable. And the Alter Rebbe introduced two levels of this. One is that something is countable, but it's too numerous to be counted, like the sand in the sea, that we are often compared to the sand of the sea, which is uncountable. But what we really mean to say is that it's subject to countable to be countable, but there's just too much of it for it to be a realistic task. And this is a perspective of creation where I recognize that the Ein Sof is part of creation, in that creation is infinitely numerous, but at the same time I see each creation as an individual being that can be counted. I'm just saying that because of the Eibishter's Ein Sof, there's too much of creation to ever be able to count. It's an infinite number. But then there's the perspective that there is no counting whatsoever. And this is the Soviv perspective. This is the higher perspective. This is this is a perspective that the Jewish people can have. And our task in our service of God is to bring these perspectives into the world, and to make these perspectives the way that the world sees itself. So this ice that we're going to be learning today, which is ice bays, and it takes us from the top of daf samach tes amud aleph to the middle of daf of samach tes amud gimel, is almost a break from the flow of the mimer to discuss how birur can happen. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing we have to understand is that whether I'm tackling creation from the Yehuda perspective, which is where I am appreciative of the fact that it's difficult to count all of creation, or whether I'm tackling creation from the Yehuda perspective, which is where I don't even see creations as being their own entities. I don't even see their countability. All of this is part of the goal of the neshama, the yeridat of the neshama down here. And this is also, the yeridat is also the goal behind our injunction to be miyached levavenu, to unite our hearts, our chitzenius halev, and our pnimius halev, which chitzenius halev is recognizing the evil and trying to engage in it, and pnimius halev is not seeing the evil at all. All of this is part of our yeridat. And the classic version of this is our job is to be מבורר. So what does it mean to be מבורר? So in the dictionary definition, being מבורר is extracting the 288 sparks that fell during Shviras HaKelim into Shemban, and returning them to their source, which is Elamatayu, that is higher than Atzilus. And so these sparks have fallen down, and it's our job to put them back and return them to their source. And now, to understand what that means, we have to first understand how birur is possible, and what the process of birur is. And the first thing we're going to say is that that birur requires shema, that shema is chachma, and that for birur to happen, chachma needs to be involved, because b'chachma is beriru. Now, the idea of birur is that true birur can only be done by something which itself is already refined. If you're in the dirt, you can't pick the dirt up. So you can't pick the dirt up fully. So first there's the birur of shema, And when it has reached this state of absolute purity, without any evil, without any foreign substance, then there's able to be the second beer of that which has not yet been nisbar. And therefore, so the shem ma is mavar shem ban, because shem ma is something which has been mesper already, and that's what gives it the ability to be mavar shem ban. Now this is described in Eitz Chaim as being the fact that first there's a birur of keser, and once keser is misbar hetiv, then it's able to be mavar chachma that has not yet been misbar. So we were given this language in the Eitz Chaim as a paradigm by which to understand the whole process of birur. So let's talk about it. Now, keser is our makif, which keser is the function of keser is to draw down malchus of Ein Sof, and this is the birur of keser, which means that it's not only does keser serve as the receptacle, so to speak, for malchus de Ein Sof, but that in being mekabel or Ein Sof, keser experiences a birur. Now, the unspoken question here is what birur keser could possibly need. So to understand this, we're going to use a saying of the Magid, that the Magid explained that the way he phrased it was that keser, even though it's pure light, there's a darkness to it, and there's a darkness to it when it is in front of our Ein Sof. Now, what is it about keser that allows this darkness to be revealed? Is bedafka the fact that keser is higher than the other spheres. That since keser has this maila over all the other spheres, that it truly reveals our Ein Sof. So when you truly understand our Ein Sof, you also appreciate and understand how little you understand. So it's bedafka in keser that this darkness, so to speak, is revealed, and the reality of keser is that it will always be batal, and it will always reveal its own darkness, in that it is such a perfect conduit to our Ein Sof. And this is the reason why keser is referred to as shtika. That's right. We say that the siag l'chachma shtika, that a fence to chachma is silence, that just like a fence surrounds the thing, so too the makif of chachma is keser, and it's in this state of shtika, it's in this state of bittul, it's in this state of ukam, and it's in darkness, and the darkness is the very fact that it reveals our Ein Sof in a way that highlights its own deficiency, and this is the idea of the shem ma, that the shem ma is able to be misaken, and the tikkun of the shem ma is the mere fact that it receives our Ein Sof. So the whole identity of shem of ma is bittul, right? And the idea of bittul is that its whole identity is the drawing down of our Ein Sof, and in drawing down our Ein Sof, it's able to enact a birur. Now, shem ban remains unrefined, right? The birur has not yet happened, because it hasn't reached the state of true bittul. It is a mixture of tevira, that it has that it has this ability of bittul, it has this perspective of bittul, and it's a bittul to hasharas our Ein Sof. But there's also within it, against this bittul, a yeshus. There's an ego. There's an existence. And this is what this is how we see with many layers of ishtalshalos, that eventually from this perspective of shem ban you come to alakad alakaya, right? The idea that there is a perspective that God is the God of gods, right? That the Eibishter is the God of gods, and what the person is saying is that yes, the Eibishter is in control, but at the same time, my God, my Yeshus, my existence has its own identity that is absolutely real. And so this is what Shem Ban, so to speak, encourages or sets the grounds for. Since it's not in a state of absolute bittul like Shem Ma, so it gives room with many layers of ishtalshalos to the perspective of a lakad lekaya. And this is the idea of there being this mixture, right? It's the taruvas, and the taruvas of Tevera, because it's a mixture of bittul and the opposite of bittul. And so Shem Ma, in a sense, comes from Shem Ban, right? And this is the difference between Chachma and the identity of a Chacham, because that Shem Ban is the existence of Chachma. Excuse me, Shem Ma is the existence of Chachma, and Shem Ban is the Gilui of Chachma. So we begin to use this language of Taruvas Tevera, and the Ra when it comes to Shem Ban is of course not Chas v'Shalom actual evil, because this is still right. This is still Shem Ban. It's still a completely godly perspective, but it begins to give room for the possibility of Ra. That because it's a gilui of chachma, it begins to give room for the possibility of Ra, and this is the idea of the Eitz Hadas Tevera, that the operative word here is das. That das is what allows there to be an awareness of Tev, and das is always also the beginning of Ra. That mashein kein in Shem Ma, which is lamaila which is bittul, that is lamaila mitam midas v'hasaga. So meaning, from the perspective of chachma of Shem Ma, it's chachma. It's an absolute pure bittul. When you get into Shem Ban and you begin to use language of das, of understanding, of comprehension, right? When you say that I can hold on to this idea, so yes, you understand Toiv, but you also begin to understand Ra. So so Shem Ban begins to give room for this possibility of Ra, and this is why the Eitz Chaim discusses first the birur of Or HaKeser, which means that there's a Gilui Shem Ma in Keser, and that in this excuse me, there's a Gilui of Shem Ma that begins to be that begins to refine the Shem Ban as it exists in Keser, right? But it's always about, even the birur of Keser is about Keser solidifying its own bittul in a way that allows for a gilui of Ein Sof that completely removes any possibility of other that Shem Ban allows. And then after that, as the Eitz Chaim describes, Keser is able to do this birur in Chachma, and then afterwards Chachma has the ability to be Mebrar Shem Ban. But the formula or the system is that it needs the absolute bittul that doesn't allow for there to be able to subsequently be a true bittul. Now, how does this work in our avodah? So we know that the neshamas that neshamas Yisrael come from Shem Ban, and in that fact, the neshamas Yisrael then have a taruvas tevera, and when they come down to this world, the reason that we come down to this world is to do this birur of Toiv Mehara, and the mixture of Toiv Ra in our neshamas is al derech the Eitz Hadas Toiv Ra. That the Eitz Hadas Toiv Ra is a fascinating concept, because what it's this tree that provides knowledge of good and evil, or provides awareness or comprehension of good and evil. What does that mean? That I feel my own ego, and because I feel my own ego, I feel that I can grasp things, and the things that I can choose to grasp are either the Toiv or the Ra. that either I can embrace kedusha, that I can recognize that the Eibishter is my life, and by recognizing the Eibishter as my life, I begin to b'derech memela feel an ava for him, a tshuka for him, and that this is all born of my das. So meaning the fact that the only way that I can perceive God as good is if I have the das to comprehend him at all, and this is the same thing with the ra, that I can intellectually comprehend the good, so to speak, or the pleasure of evil, and in appreciating that pleasure, I can then chase after it. And all of this comes from my das. So what is the birur, right? What is our job? What does it mean that we're extracting the good from the evil? That we need to use that same tool of das to choose good over evil, right? To choose the good and to choose to love the Eibishter. And this is what was explained before, that there needs to be a higher power, right, so to speak, there a birur that comes from a higher place that is able to cause this birur to be effective. Because if it's all based on the mata, if it's all based on my das, then it's impossible that I'm going to be able to do a true birur. The birur has to happen with something, as we said before, that itself is completely pure. That the way that a neshama operates is from this idea of Eitz Das Tevira, that I have that I'm recognizing my own comprehension, and my own comprehension is not able to completely refine the evil, because my das, even though it genuinely, by contemplating Elikus, brings me to Avos Hashem, but nevertheless, I cannot completely push away evil through this, because the whole idea my whole relationship with good was by my validation of my das, and this is why it's called Eitz Das Toivira, because the ra is just as real at a das level as the toiv. That the neshama has the ability to comprehend and then choose good. And by comprehending and choosing good, the neshama then feels an avat Hashem, but the neshama has an equal potential, an equal ability to choose evil. That the neshama can contemplate the temptations of Eilam Hazeh, and by contemplating the temptations of Eilam Hazeh, can arouse Taivas Rois, and in that, the neshama can actually choose evil. And this is why it says that the Beinani is Zev Zeh Sheftan. That the Beinani is the reason that the Beinani forever will struggle with his evil inclination, right, and constantly be aware of evil, is that the Beinani is operating from his own perspective. So from his own perspective, he has reached an appreciation of the fact that he loves the Eibishter, and because he loves the Eibishter, he is controlling his taivas, meaning he is chasing and he's choosing good, but he hasn't gotten rid of the bad, because his whole perspective is that from an intellectual level I appreciate good, and therefore I don't do any averes. But it's not that he doesn't see the perspective of why I want to do an avera. It's just that he has intellectually comprehended how the good of good is better than the good of bad, and this is what he chooses to this is what he chooses to chase. But in reality, is Zev Zeh Sheftan. He's being controlled in a sense both by his nefesh Bahamas and nefesh Elokis, and there's able to be this unikas hachitzainim. The das does not eradicate the chitzainim, so chitzainim can continue to wean off this. Can continue to feed off this, and therefore there has to be a subsequent birur that comes from a place that is absolutely itself pure, that has no shaykhis to ra, and this is what allows for true birur of tevira to happen. Now there is a sagrayim that at the bottom of Daf Samach Tes Amud Beis, which where the Alter Rebbe kvetches that the that there is a perspective that das is what can do the birur. And so we introduced this idea of there being das elyon and das tachton, that the das tachton is what gives this possibility for evil, but from the das elyon perspective, there truly is none. He explains that das tachton is the das that we can appreciate, and this is what allows there to be this possibility of tevira, and this is where the midas come out of seichel, and this is where you have the zeluma ze'asalakim. But from the das elyon perspective, there really is no there is no possibility of ra, because here this is the midas that are l'mayla miseichel, right? This is where our inspiration comes from keser, and so in other words, even if you want to say that das itself is what does the birur, this das that is being talked about is not the das that this is not the das tachton. It's not the das that is that recognizes good and evil. It's a das that is being infused by a gilui elokus of shema from keser. But coming back to the fnim of the mimer, that the only way for true birur to happen is if there's a ha'ara mishema within it, and this actually causes the birur, that it comes from the forehead of Ak, which is keser elyon, and that this force is what has the ability to truly be mברר, and for a real true birur of the nefesh bahamas. Now, why is it that this is able to happen b'dafka in our world? So this is where we come to the idea of ratzon elyon, that the Eibishter's ratzon is b'dafka in this world, and therefore the highest perspective on creation, meaning the shema perspective, is able to come down to our world. That this is the ratzon elyon, which is l'mayla min das, that every person has in their neshama a yechida, which the yechida is in a constant state of bittul to the Eibishter. It's l'mayla midas v'seichel hamusag, and this is where we're called the am kashe erif. This is the essential and quintessential Jewish identity, which is always connected to the Eibishter, which never separates from God. And that, from that perspective, I truly don't see good and evil as being in the same conversation. That from that perspective, my whole understanding of reality is the Eibishter's. And this is the Am Kashe Erif. This is a Ratzon Pashut that is not based on Tam. It's not based on comprehension. This comes straight from Keser, and this has the ability to do real practical birur, because this perspective has no drop of anything of evil. It's all kedusha. It's all bittul, and this reaches higher than the bechira that is based on das. And this then has the ability to be mevarer the tov min hara, meaning if you're coming from the das level, you can't fully extract tov min hara, but it's only if you're reaching from a perspective that is higher than that das that you're able to do that birur. And this is why it's not enough for our Judaism to be purely intellectual. It can't be that we are purely intellectual and emotional, meaning we cannot limit our Judaism to what I can intellectually produce emotions with, but rather there has to be an underlying bittul that is a part of my Yiddishkeit, unrelated to my feelings. Meaning, as much as I'm using my hisbonenus to create emotions and to create a passionate relationship with Eibishter, there's also a perspective where I say Kabbalah Sol, that I have a connection to God that is based on Mesiras Nefesh, and the Mesiras Nefesh is L'mayla Matam V'das, and this is a relationship with the Eibishter that is based purely on bittul, and from that perspective, the service of God is purely based on what the Eibishter wants. It's not even based on my emotions, and right, because even if I were to be misbeinen in the godless Hashem, and to be and to produce real Ava and Yira, the Ava and Yira would not last. It would not have a kiyum amiti, and I would immediately fall from there. If I'm connecting to the Eibishter purely based on my own intellect, then when I have if the same intellect that got me to connect to Hashem can also get me to connect to Sitra Achra, I need the bittul. I need the bittul that comes from Keser, which is a Kabbalah soul dedication, a Mesiras Nefesh dedication. That's what has to infuse my service, because this passion, which comes from Ratzon that is higher than Seichel, has no relationship to Lumazeh. It has no connection to evil.